Welcome, everyone, to another edition of Maz's Musings. This week, I was joined by Eileen once again, but unlike past episodes, we switched up the format a little bit. This time, we are talking about something that some people kind of think is a myth or maybe a elusive unicorn at Walt Disney World, and that is the rides and attractions that don't have a massive wait. We look at those attractions that have a 20-minute wait or less and kind of talk about what they're all about. Which are the ones we like? Which are the ones that, there's a reason why they're 5-minute waits all the time. But a lot of these rides have a place in the parks, and they're important for different reasons, and a lot of them are important to us and have a special place in our hearts. So we're going to go through this kind of bracket style. We've got 24 of the attractions. There are more than 24, believe it or not, but we narrowed it down to 24 attractions that we've at least experienced recently so that we could give it a fair shake. And we lay them out for you and talk about what makes them great, what makes them not so great. What I can say is we had a great time doing it. But before we get into that, wanted to take the opportunity to again thank everybody who has been listening. If you are enjoying what you're hearing, feel free to tell your friends, spread the word, give us a review or a rating. You can visit us online by going to our website, mazasmusings.wordpress.com. You can share our social media. We're at the Maz's Musings podcast on Facebook. We've got a brand new Instagram account, Maz's Musings Pod. You can find us on pretty much most of the places where you find your podcasts. So if you listen to us on Spotify and you tell somebody about it and they don't have Spotify, you can say, you got iTunes. It's on Apple Music. If you prefer YouTube, it's on YouTube as well. So tons of ways to find us. Tons of ways to listen. So very appreciative to everybody who has been listening. And I'd be all the more appreciative if you helped spread the word of this podcast so that we can reach more people and have more fun. Reaching more people also opens up doors to new subjects. And if you have a subject that you want to hear us talk about, let me know. I'm an open book. I talked about wrestling last week. I don't know a thing about wrestling, but if it's something that people are interested in hearing about, I'm all about giving it a whirl. So you can reach out to me directly on social media in the ways that I mentioned. You can reach out through the contact information that's on the website. You can also reach out directly at mazasmusings@gmail.com. Now that that's out of the way, let's walk on to our main topic today. See what I did there? Okay, I'm done.
Donald, wake up! It's showtime!
Welcome, foolish mortals.
Please keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the train and remain seated at all times.
And here we go!
All right, so we are kicking off this episode with a song that's a little bit, appropriate for what we're going to be talking about. But before we get into that, it's also appropriate because of something that I had mentioned to you either yesterday or this morning, I don't remember which, but about some possible news about Rockin Rollercoaster.
Hey, wait a minute. We can't leave these people here like this.
We can't?
No.
Well, guys, what do you expect me to do? Send them all with you?
Wait a minute. I love that idea. How about some backstage passes?
I've seen some rumors that possibly Rockin Rollercoaster may be finally done with its long refurbishment as of the end of July. I think that the thing that I saw said July 27th. So that Eileen is here with me, by the way. She's kind of looking at me funny, like, what are you talking about? But essentially, and you got to take some of this stuff with a grain of salt, especially some of these blogs have a lot of clickbait stuff on it, and but basically on the My Disney Experience app, there's a list of the rides and attractions that are under refurbishment, and you can go day by day to see what the list is. So I think it was the 27th, but on the 26th it shows Rockin' Rollercoaster as part of the refurbishment list. And then on the 27th, it's not on the list anymore.
So we're hoping that means it'll be open.
Right. And of course, this would especially be big news for Eileen and I, given, well, if you had listened to the last podcast, you know this. If you haven't, first, please go listen to the last podcast. But for your knowledge, I surprised Eileen for her birthday / Mother's Day with a quick trip down to Disney World for some fun and hopefully a little bit of relaxation.
I mean, I think we are booking ourselves up pretty good, so I'm not sure how much relaxing.
Yeah, on top of everything else, we were able to score tickets to the opening day of the Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party, which will be a first for us, so that's very exciting. And yeah, it's a short trip. It's 3 nights, and so we're going to be cramming a lot into that time. But hopefully, we'll be able to find a little bit of time, to do a little relaxing.
And if we don't relax, we'll at least do some big kid rides that Megan isn't ready for yet.
Well, I think that about covers it. That's the business, and the fun's just ahead.
All right. So the premise of this episode was I kind of was looking at. I was honestly looking at the My Disney Experience app recently, just looking at what wait times are. I was killing some time and just curious as to what was happening. And I got this thought. I saw some of the things. There are some things that we always know are things that are going to have a short wait or something we can just walk onto. And sometimes those rides are great because it's just like, hey, do you want to duck in here or do you want to jump on this? We've got a little time. And some of them are fun rides or attractions in and of themselves. So I got to thinking, I got to thinking about how many of these are there actually in the parks, first off. And there's a website, I think it's called The Laughing Place, that actually has a listing of the average wait times for like the last 30 days and the last 90 days. And so I took a look at those numbers and saw that there's a pretty significant amount that basically have under 30 under a 20-minute wait on average. 20 minutes or under.
I was going to say some of these, when we've been down there, have definitely been longer. But, of course, we are always down there on school vacation weeks, Princess Weekend, things like that, where it is a little bit busier.
So then on top of everything else, as this continued, I started thinking about, of course, being a sports guy, I like to rank things. I like to, so I made a bracket of all of these rides and attractions that are either no wait or short wait that you can find throughout Walt Disney World. And so I made up a bracket and I said to Eileen, why don't we go through this and kind of like do a little thing that, kind of deciding what might be the best or some our favorite. And it's not completely scientific or anything like that, but I thought it'd be a fun exercise. And
yeah, and I want to clarify that when I was filling this out, I definitely kind of went with what was favorite to me for some of them. And as I look at where I ended up, I'm still trying to decide between my finals. But there are definitely 2 that have a lot of nostalgia to them. So that's kind of where I'm like, I don't know that they are the best of them, but they are pretty good.
So Eileen did a little bit of prep work for a couple minutes before we started this. I actually have a blank bracket in front of me. So outside of actually compiling the bracket, I haven't done a lot of legwork into this. So there's probably going to be a lot of me thinking out loud as we're going through this for me. We have in our bracket 24 rides and attractions. I took out the ones that either one or both of us haven't been on at all or recently. So, we basically the ones that I felt we couldn't make a fair judgment on. So the ones that we are not including here is the Carousel of Progress, Tom Sawyer's Island, Vacation Fun, which is that movie at Hollywood Studios.
Which we've seen, but it's been a long time.
Yeah.
Or I've seen it, but a long time ago.
Liberty Square Riverboat, and the Tiki Room. So those are the ones that that are not included in this list, just so that everybody knows. And the way that I did this, and we'll get into this, I promise, but the way that I did this was I ranked them. So the number one seed in this bracket is the ride with the shortest wait time, and the lowest seed is the one with the longest wait time, because the whole idea here is what are rides that you can just jump on.
And I want to be careful because they're not all rides. Some
right,
of them
rides
are
and attractions. I've tried to say that earlier, but so because it's 24, there are some that we're not going to talk about in the first round. So Swiss Family Treehouse, Triceratops Spin, Figment, People Mover, Muppet Vision 3D, the Grand Fiesta Tour, It's Tough to Be a Bug, and Living with the Land all got, a quote-unquote first round bye. Those are the 8 most walk-onable of the attractions. So from there, with that in mind, we're going to get started, and it's basically like your typical tournament bracket format. So this first round is kind of like a play-in, and then those attractions that move on will face off with those ones that are that got that first bye, quote unquote. So the first one that we're starting with is Tomorrowland Speedway and Spaceship Earth.
I think you should go first on these because I don't want my choice to influence your decision.
Okay. All right. That's fine with me. So this one is pretty easy to me. It's Spaceship Earth. In a previous podcast, I talked about how much I really enjoy Spaceship Earth. One of the reasons why I enjoy it is a lot of times it is something that has a short wait. And I've also talked about how while it is a little bit antiquated, it does have a lot of that feel of not necessarily old Disney, because it's not as old as, say, original Disney World Magic Kingdom rides or something like that, but
like Walt's Vision.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of that looking at our past to to inform our future, and I just really enjoy that.
Like a grand and miraculous spaceship, our plan is to sail through the universe of time, and for a brief moment, we have been among its passengers. But where are we going? And what kind of future will we discover there? Surprisingly, the answers lie in our past.
I also went with Spaceship Earth. Last time I was on the Speedway was a lot of fun. Megan crashed us, but in general, I picked Spaceship Earth as well.
How did Megan crash you on the thing that's on a track?
Every time. She said that the steering wheel was broken.
I'm sure that kids love it, but I've never seen an attraction to the Speedway. I even recall as a kid being like, "What? Why is that here?" The next one is the carousel. Not the Carousel of Progress, the carousel, like behind
Like
the castle.
merry-go-round.
Yes. And Small World. So, so there's some nostalgia with the carousel, especially, was it Megan's first trip, or was it I get some of the trips mixed up, but I think it was the COVID trip that we took. So she was 3.
Yeah.
We took a trip. It got postponed because of COVID. We ended up going for Christmas. The day after Christmas, and I think we rode the carousel like 3 times.
That's all she wanted to do.
Yeah. So there's some nostalgia to it there. I think it's a beautiful ride, especially you look at some of the details. You look at the paintings and everything that surround the ride and everything. It's all great. But I'm gonna go with Small World. It's just, it's a classic ride. I honestly don't even mind the song as much as some people do. People hate the song, and I think that's one of those things that some people were annoyed by the song, so then it became like a thing to it became a joke that you hated the song, but it's also another one of those nostalgia rides. When our first trip with Megan was 1 year old, and it was one of the things that she could go on, and she was just entranced by everything going on Small World. But yeah, it's one of those things that it's a longer ride, which is nice because if you're looking for just some chill time, it's good for that as well. But I think just the classic nature of it is the tipping point for me.
I also went with Small World. You had me fooled there. And I went back and forth a lot on this one. Because I do love the carousel. But I think what won me over for that was Small World is a longer ride. So if you do wait a little bit, you're waiting for a longer time, or you're waiting for a longer ride. And I think its length of time is what kind of took the lead for me there.
Now, I think that for me with the carousel, the visuals of the carousel are better than the actual. It's a carousel, but I think it's very photogenic. So I don't need to be on it to take pictures of it. So, So we've got PhilharMagic and Dumbo. I'm gonna go with Dumbo here. I know that PhilharMagic is one of your favorites. It's something that you regularly are. Hey, let's go see PhilharMagic. PhilharMagic to me is fine, but I guess this is going to make me sound really old. It's very loud. It's very cool and everything like that with the some of the it's 3D effects, so it's nothing groundbreaking or anything like that, but there are some cool things that they do with it. But there's just I understand why it's loud. But it's one of those things that I don't necessarily need to have my ears assailed like that. So and Dumbo is Dumbo. It's there's nothing spectacular about Dumbo. The one good thing about Dumbo is something that we haven't taken a lot of advantage of, but it has the queue with like the play area for kids and everything. So if you do have kids and you're going on Dumbo, that's a great feature for you. We've never really taken advantage of that. I think the one time that we
often there's no line there, so we just kind of go through it.
Exactly. So they built an interactive queue for something that very rarely has a queue.
And we could stop off and play at it for sure, but
I went with Dumbo.
And I did go with PhilharMagic here. I was back and forth. But I feel like PhilharMagic for me is sort of a flashback to childhood because because of the songs in it. And it's kind of just like this little, this soundtrack of what it was like growing up in my house. So I think, there's the nostalgia of PhilharMagic and the music that goes along with that.
So for some background for people who don't know what it means, that it's, in reference to your house growing up.
I was the oldest of 6 kids, and we watched Disney movies all the time. So it was, there was always Disney songs being sung or played or whatever.
Oh, see, I thought you were going with that you all played instruments.
Oh, no, I mean, we could go that way, but I was more just thinking, like, listening. We weren't all good enough at the same time to be able to play this music. We did play some of it in high school, middle school, and even now I play sometimes some of this music in the group I play with in the summers as an adult. But Eileen
plays trumpet, by the way. Just so her mother was a music teacher, band director, now retired. So just as a little background as to what we're talking about with the music aspect, which is what I thought where she was going with this whole music theme.
Yeah, no, but again, the music I think is a big part of it, because music has been such a big part of my life. So, yeah.
All right, we have next Mad Tea Party and Dinosaur. So I'm going with Mad Tea Party.
Of course you are.
And this is, it's just, I have a lot of fun on this ride. I've never been one who's been huge into roller coasters. I've grown to like a lot of the roller coasters, like at Disney and everything like that. But I was always, someone who was much more keen on going around and round than I was going, especially when, we have it's now a Six Flags, but was another amusement park that had the standard, wooden roller coasters when I was growing up, and I hated that kind of thing. The teacups have always been in my wheelhouse in terms of rides that I'd enjoy. My parents basically had to drag me kicking and screaming onto Splash Mountain the first time that I went on it because of my issue with drops and heights and things like that at the time. So, and during a previous podcast, I had talked about how I think Dinosaur is just kind of like it's outlived its relevance, which is weird because it's a newer ride than the teacups. But the teacups are kind of timeless as far as I'm concerned. You're going to find a ride like the teacups is going to appeal to people of pretty much any generation.
I also went with the teacups here, and I went with it because, well, neither of these are top rides in my book. Neither of these are I could miss both of these every time I go there. I don't love spinny rides, and Dinosaur was fun the first few times I went on it, but they either need to update it or do something different so that it's not the exact same experience. But I did go with the teacups because, if nothing else, I really enjoy going on it and watching Megan on the teacups. So that's where teacups win.
Megan does love the teacups, yes. And, I do take it easy on you when we are on the teacups. This is also one of those childhood memories. I remember my dad just cranking the teacups as hard as he could when we were there. I think he was trying to make us sick, but that was something that it's one of those rides that's always been there for me, and it's something that I've always enjoyed being on. So. All right, moving to the other side, we have Star Tours and Turtle Talk with Crush. It's Star Tours. On top of everything else, when I was younger, it was the only Star Wars attraction. So, again, there's the nostalgia. But the nice thing is they've kept it from getting stale because they keep updating it. They keep adding adventures, and now you don't know what adventure you're going to be on when you get on it. So you can go on it 4 times, in a given visit, and have 4 different experiences. So Star Tours, absolutely. I think that Turtle Talk it's entertaining, it's cute, it's fun. I always like to at least pop my head in if it if it's happening. But on top of everything else, now 1 million people are taking videos of it and posting them on the internet. So but yeah, I'm a huge Star Wars fan. This was the first real Star Wars ride I ever went on. It's Star Tours.
I went with Star Tours as well. Crush is fun, but Star Tours definitely has a little more adventure to it, a little more excitement.
All right, the next one is a little more excitement to it. Star Tours has a little more excitement than
you
talking
never
to a turtle.
know what Crush might say. It's unpredictable.
I suppose you're honestly you're more apt to have a kid say something.
Fair enough.
Okay, so the next one is the Hall of Presidents and Under the Sea. It's Under the Sea. Now, I think that the Hall of Presidents is cool. I haven't seen it it's been a little while since I've seen it, but I think it's very cool. I think it's also one of those things that, kind of harkens back to some of Walt's earliest, works, like, things that he did for the World's Fair and everything with Mr. Lincoln. That it's building off of that, and so. And there's something to the reverence of it, and to the reverence of the office of the presidency, which, I'm not going to get into political stuff, but people tend to like to make jokes about it at this point. But so I respect Hall of Presidents. I think that it gets a little bit of a bad rap, but Under the Sea is it's a fun ride.
Yeah, obviously I chose Under the Sea. The Little Mermaid's my favorite movie. I think they do a really nice job of presenting the movie through the ride, and 100% Under the Sea. Every time we go there, I'm one of the ones that sort of jokes about Hall of Presidents, because every time we go there, my dad is just like, "Did you go to the Hall of Presidents? Did you go to the Hall of Presidents?" Because he went to the Hall of Presidents, and it was his very favorite thing at Disney. He is a history buff, so he's always into all sorts of history, all sorts of information like that. So it's an ideal place for him to go and enjoy. But Under the Sea, hands down.
All right, sorry, we have our dog decided to come visit us in the office while recording. So if you've heard a little bit of background noise, that's Comet, who came to say hi.
Who seems to want something, but
he wants attention. He knows that we're giving each other attention, and he wants in on the action.
Yes, action. Sitting across from the microphone. Very exciting.
So exciting. Okay, so the next one is the Lightning McQueen Racing Academy, or the Magic Carpets of Aladdin. This one's tough. This is where you're finding, because I'm filling this out as we go. I hadn't done the Racing Academy. I don't think either of us had until last year. It was one of those things that was tucked behind Rockin' Rollercoaster. We didn't really pay it any mind. but it was very cool. Like, it was a fun experience. I think Megan didn't know what to expect and was a little freaked out by it at first. But
she has a hard time separating fact from fiction.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. But I thought that was very cool. The magic carpets. Somebody recently was just like, yeah, they're basically like Dumbo Jr. So I think I'm gonna go with Lightning McQueen here. It's a little bit. It's more unique. It's more of a show for those of you who haven't been there. It like basically you're sitting there with Lightning McQueen, so it's very cool, and the animatronic is very very detailed and it feels like the movie character is there in front of you. It's very it's very true to the movie. So I think that I'm going with that just because it's something that's a little bit different. It's also in air conditioning, which can be helpful. It's one of those nice little break opportunities.
I went the opposite. I did go with the carpets here, which is funny because, Dumbo did not win for me in its bracket, and Dumbo's better than the carpets, but when you're competing against something that I prefer more, it's hard. I thought Lightning McQueen was really cool. It was a very cool experience. But when I think of the carpets, it is something, especially now with Megan, we pretty much do every trip. And I think of it like that's a very crowded area of the park. I feel like as we're walking over that way, like there's so many people, like between like Jungle Cruise and like heading back past the carpets. I just feel like it's sort of like okay, we'll come over here, we'll do the carpets. We might have to wait in line for a bit, but and then when you're on the carpet, you mentioned the air conditioning in Lightning. In my head, I was thinking, the camel squirting you while you're riding on the carpets. So.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. There is kind of like that when you first get into Adventureland. There is kind of that bottleneck. You've got like the Skipper Canteen to the right and the treehouse to the left, and then there's like a bathroom over there. So there's a lot of times people coming in and out there. So that it is a very congested area, and then you come up on the Jungle Cruise 90-minute line because it's always a 90-minute line.
Well, in the line you don't see so much, but the stroller parking is.
Well, yes, yeah. But so you're basically Jungle Cruise is the antithesis of what the kind of attractions we're talking about today. So that's a fair point, but I'm going with the uniqueness of Lightning McQueen. So. The last one in the first round is the Seas with Nemo and the Barnstormer. I'm going with the Barnstormer. I was surprised at like how much of a legitimate little roller coaster this is. I thought it's kind of a kiddie coaster for those who aren't like familiar with it, because on top of everything else, it is kind of like tucked behind Dumbo. It's basically a roller coaster where Goofy's like a stunt pilot of a biplane. So it's a kiddie coaster. Megan went on it at 3 years old. Two, excuse me. She was 2. And it was more than we thought it was going to be. So it's a fun little coaster is what I'd say. Nemo's fine, it's a cute little ride, and in a big blue world.
No, I can't do that. You stole that from me.
Oh, sorry. But so it's it's fine, and then you'll have that stuck in your head for the rest of the day, and
or the rest of the month.
The rest of the month, right? Exactly. It'll just pop 2:00 in the morning, even when you're trying to sleep. It'll pop into your head. But it's one of those things that it's like, yeah, okay, we'll do this, but I don't know. they basically like slapped Nemo over something that already existed, and we're just like, yeah, that's good, yeah, okay, it's good, and instead of actually doing something that could be far better, more engaging.
I went with Nemo here. I like it. The song is very catchy. It gets stuck in my head. I enjoy listening to it. And I've only been on the Barnstormer once, and it was an absolutely terrifying experience. Because I was expecting it to be like a little kiddie roller coaster where you go around, you go a little up and down, you're going like 10 miles per hour, but you feel like you're on the roller coaster. And the little kid loves it, and that's what I was expecting. It went pretty fast. It was fairly jerky. It was not like the smoothest of coasters. I had a lot of fun on it, don't get me wrong. But I also had Megan, who was 2, who I was not expecting it to be quite as big of a coaster as it was. And she's 2, and she's like just cleared the height to do it and was, so excited to do it. And I was afraid to like look at her and have her be freaking out. But then when we finished, she cried because she had to get off and She couldn't do it again. So, I have a very, very memorable experience with Barnstormer, but I guess when it comes down to it, the one I'm going to do much more regularly would be Nemo.
Well, most of the rides and attractions that we're talking about in this episode only take a minute or two to get on and experience. You know what else only takes a minute or two is getting your free vacation quote from We Do Travel Right. We Do Travel Right is an authorized Disney vacation planner and prestigious earmarked gold producer. Emily and her team specialize in concierge vacation planning, including the We Do Travel Right dining team. They take away the stress and let you get back to the most important part of vacationing, which is having fun. The best part is they do all of this for you for free. That's right, you don't pay a dime extra. Companies like Disney already build the cost of an agent into their prices, so when you book with We Do Travel Right, the company pays them directly. The We Do Travel Right team is the best at finding the best value for you, so if there's a deal out there, they will find it. Visit WeDoTravelRight.com/Mazza to get your free vacation quote today with no obligation. And if you've already booked a trip recently and want someone to take away the hassle, you can transfer your trip to We Do Travel Right, and their team will do the rest. So check out WeDoTravelRight.com/Mazza. That's WeDoTravelRight.com/MAZA, and start your next magical adventure. All right, so that's the end of the first round. So then we're moving on now. These attractions are moving on to face those top 8, quote unquote top 8, the shortest 8 really. So starting off, it's the Swiss Family Treehouse and Spaceship Earth.
Well, yeah, for both of us, but some of these will be different.
I'm sorry. Yes, some of these will be different. So I had the Swiss Family Treehouse and Spaceship Earth, and I chose Spaceship Earth. I think the treehouse is something that would be good for Megan on her next trip, which will be when she's 7. Like, that feels like it's going to be a good prime age for her. The last time, she was younger, smaller legs. It felt like there was just like a lot of climbing that, was, a lot for her. It also, it does have a, like from certain spots, there's a nice cool view of the castle and things like that. So it has its place and everything. And I think she's entering like the wheelhouse for it. And it's something that's like, all right, we'll do this. And, that'll be good. You can climb and, go run ahead and do what you want to do. We'll meet you. But Spaceship Earth is just, a much more engaging experience for me, honestly. So
Yeah, I had the same two there, and Spaceship Earth is what advanced through it. Swiss Family Treehouse, I don't really have any connection to Swiss Family Robinson. I feel like it's sort of outdated. I don't know what I would love to see them do something with, but maybe make it a little more modern so that more people can connect with it. Again, you don't want to like totally erase everything that they had because it did have meaning to people at one point in time, but it's obviously not nearly as popular or well known as it was at one point in time. So, Spaceship Earth advances.
All right, so for the next one, I had Small World advancing to go against Figment, Journey into Imagination with Figment. I chose Small World again. Figment is like the figurehead of Epcot, but it's just not great, and it wasn't great to begin with, and it just hasn't aged all that well. Small World also really hasn't changed. But the thing is, Small World also doesn't have to change. So I think that's the difference. Is you look at Small World and it's great just the way that it is. You look at Figment and it's just like, okay,
modernize it, do something.
Let's do something with this, please. So
yeah, I had the same two there, and Small World also advanced. Because again, Figment's Figment. I'll go on it if it's a short wait time or if we're in the area, hot day, cool down for a little bit. But I'm not going to like go out of my way to go there.
Right. All right, the next one is Dumbo and Muppet Vision 3D. This one was an easy one for me. I love Muppet Vision 3D. I love the Muppets. I've made Eileen sit through Muppet movies that she's just like, why am I watching this? It kind of, on top of everything else, it kind of leans into, like, when Muppets are at their best is they're, like, kind of leaning into chaos.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to apologize for our slight technical difficulties, but I do wish to assure you that no one was hurt, and this theater suffered only minor damage.
Sure, it could be updated, whatever. It's the same show that it has been, but it strikes that right chord with what the Muppets are supposed to be, So that they haven't really been able to hit with things that they've done with the Muppets since then. So I love the Muppets. I love Muppet Vision 3D.
So I had Muppet Vision versus PhilharMagic, and I had PhilharMagic move through. Again, for that same, like, love the music, love the, the nostalgia of it, that classic Disney, all those classic Disney songs. So that beats out the Muppets.
The next one that I had is the Teacups, and it's Tough to Be a Bug. And the Teacups win this one hands down. There are few attractions that I dislike more at Walt Disney World than It's Tough to Be a Bug. Like, I hold a personal grudge against the creators of of A Bug's Life because of A Bug's Life, It's Tough to Be a Bug exists. That's how deep my dislike for that show is. It basically exists to make kids cry, and and that's basically what happens every time. You end up with screaming, crying kids all around you. So there's no redeeming quality to that show whatsoever, as far as I'm concerned. And if it closed tomorrow and never came back, I would be happy. And on top of everything else, I can't believe that something that bad is what's inside something like the Tree of Life, which in and of itself is so awesome. So I hate to be so negative about it, but I just have very strong feelings about It's Tough to Be a Bug.
So I had Tough to Be a Bug and Mad Tea Party as well. And I don't think in my wildest dreams would I have expected the teacups to push through to the Elite Eight. But they have, because I do not have nearly the same animosity towards It's Tough to Be a Bug as you do. But I'd rather do the teacups.
All right, so moving to the other side of the bracket, I've got Star Tours and Triceratops Spin. And it's going to be Star Tours again. Triceratops Spin is a fine ride. It's another version of Dumbo that's at Animal Kingdom. It serves a purpose. It's absolutely fine. Sure, you're at Animal Kingdom, and especially if you've got younger kids, go on Triceratops Spin. You'll have a blast. It'll be a great time. But it's Star Tours. It's Star Wars. It's great. Yeah. It's something that's fine versus something that I think is great. So,
and I put Star Tours through as well. And you mentioned the Triceratops Spin. It's totally got a purpose. There's not a massive amount of rides at Animal Kingdom, so that is a good one to hop on, especially with young kids. But I remember like when we went down with Mary Kate and Haley back when Megan was a baby. You three went on Dinosaur.
Yeah.
And she couldn't, so rather than just sitting around, she and I went on the Triceratops Spin a couple times. So, yeah. So its location to other stuff too was good because, we could do something, you guys could go do something.
Mary Kate and Haley being Eileen's sister and our niece, just for some context as to who we're talking about. So let's see, moving on, we've got Under the Sea. I had Under the Sea and The People Mover. Oh, man.
This was an unfair one.
This was
not a fair matchup.
This one is tough. I love The People Mover.
Greetings, intergalactic travelers. Welcome aboard The People Mover.
I love The People Mover. I think that it is... it's hard to explain, because if you actually explain what it is to somebody, they're just like, well, that doesn't sound great.
No, but you have to do it. It's the best.
But when you do it, it is. It's just one of those perfect, kind of chill kind of ride attraction. I guess it's a little bit of both. But it's one of those things that at one point was at both parks. there was a People Mover in Disneyland. I guess it's no longer operational. I don't know. I've never been to Disneyland. Neither have you. But so it was one of those things that was at both places, and it's cool because you go through Spaceship Earth, not Spaceship Earth, excuse me, Space
Mission
Mountain.
Space.
No, Space Mountain. You go through a couple of other things, and as you're on it, you've got some great views of the castle too. And it's literally It literally exists to move people, and you start and end at the same spot. Whatever. It sounds like it would be something that you're just like, why would I want to do that? But it's just one of those things that is just a must-do for me, and I can't really explain why.
No, I mean, this was really an unfair category. This matchup I'm unhappy with, because those two probably could have been my top two. I think we did it in our Q&A one. It was what is a can't miss attraction? And it was for me, thinking of it out of the blue, it was People Mover. But when I look at this, it's Under the Sea. Again, The Little Mermaid is my absolute favorite. So as much as I love the People Mover, Little Mermaid, Under the Sea advances. But yeah, that was when I was doing it, I was just like, that is not fair, because People Mover should go way further than it is.
All right. The next one is the Grand Fiesta Tour and Lightning McQueen. And I went with the Grand Fiesta Tour. Basically, you're going to find a common theme with a lot of these, and it's nothing special, and obviously, that's part of the reason why they have the short wait times, but it's it's something that's fun, and it's something that incorporates on top of everything else Donald Duck. There aren't very many attractions in the park that incorporate Donald Duck. So I find it to be a fun one, while also being a relaxing ride, and it's just one of those great air conditioned spots too. That we've mentioned a couple of times. So yeah, just Grand Fiesta tour.
And I had Grand Fiesta and the Magic Carpets. And I can't give you any reason other than that's what my pencil wrote down. But it was the Carpets Advanced. And I don't have an explanation except when I was thinking about the two carpets came out. So I don't have any real reason other than, it's the Carpets.
All right, so then we have Living with the Land and Barnstormer for me. I went with Living with the Land. I think it's really cool. I think that it's really. I mean, it's the same thing every time, but it's really just interesting to see, and every time, especially when we're going through those areas with the growing, cool. I feel like I observe something different every time. I'm just like, oh man, that's an interesting way that they did that, Yeah. So,
very educational.
Yeah, it's very educational. On top of everything else, Megan's at an age where she's just like, she was fascinated when she saw like how a pineapple grows, So like, I enjoy Living with the Land. I think it's a great kind of chill ride that is still engaging. You can find things that will pique your interest about it.
So I had Living with the Land and Nemo. And as you were describing Living with the Land, I'm like, ooh, did I put the wrong choice? Because I went with Nemo. And I guess I look at that as it's a fun thing. It's a fun little ride. And I think some of it is where the ride comes out to, because it takes you out into the aquarium.
Oh, that's not fair.
I know, but like when I think of Nemo, I think of that. So I think, I get what you're saying. It's not fair, but when I think of a ride, I think of the whole experience. And for whatever, so I know.
It's cheating.
It's not.
Well, because you can get to the aquarium part without going through the ride. So.
Yeah, I know you can. But I never do.
Okay.
I get.
That's
you
fine.
Can't change my mind. I mean,
I'm not
you
trying
almost
to change,
changed my mind.
I'm not trying to change your mind. I'm just, I think you're tiptoeing on the edge of the
Part
rules.
of Disney is the experience. We tell people that all the time.
Yes, but that's not the question here. But anyway, we'll move on. So, all right, we are down to the Elite Eight, so to speak, and I have Spaceship Earth versus Small World,
and I have the same.
And I'm advancing Spaceship Earth.
I did too.
All right, yeah. I don't know how much more we can really say about it. It is what it is. Since we're going outside the actual sphere of the attraction. Do you see what I did there?
Yeah,
Spaceship Earth is a sphere.
Yeah. You're so funny.
I should be a Jungle Cruise captain. I'm so funny. Oh my
goodness.
Anyway.
Moving on.
I love taking pictures of Spaceship Earth, so that is another thing that's in its favor.
Okay.
Taking pictures in Spaceship Earth is really tough.
Yeah, it's not.
Like the lighting
is. Yeah, you have tried before.
The lighting makes it very tough, and I just don't have the right equipment for that.
Yeah, and I know that when I wrote down Spaceship Earth to advance, I had something, and I'm like, ooh, I'm gonna say this, but I don't remember what it was now. So it just, it's probably honestly just that it's in the Epcot ball as Megan
Yeah,
refers to it
catfall,
so
yeah.
so kindly. So I think just having it be like, you know, in that symbolic building.
And I mean, Megan is super into it too. Like
Yeah.
she asks a lot of questions when you're, or you know, she's asking you the questions because we don't all fit in the same thing. So I'm hearing it either over my shoulder or over your shoulder. All right, so for the next one, I had Muppet Vision and the teacups. I've got to go with the teacups. I'm sorry. Any opportunity that I have to, on top of everything else, you know, kind of torture you a little bit. And I'm always very nice. I'm always very nice with the teacups. I don't spin it too much. Even though Megan's like, spin it more, Daddy. Yeah.
Yeah. She thinks we're spinning it quite a bit. Little does she know how much it could really go. So I had PhilharMagic and Mad Tea Party. And finally fell off. PhilharMagic moved on over the teacups. You know, I am shocked. The fact that the teacups made it to the Elite Eight and People Mover didn't shows just like how you can draw a bad seed and fall apart. Well, in this case, the teacups drew a good seed, but they're finally out. So, PhilharMagic.
All right, the next one is Star Tours. For me, Star Tours and the People Mover. It's Star Tours. It's Star Wars. I mean, behind Eileen, the Mickey ears that I have, there's multiple Star Wars Mickey ears, and there's a photo. There's a picture of Darth Vader walking an AT-AT like a dog on a leash. So it pretty much goes without saying that I'm going to pick Star Tours.
I wonder if that's going to be your final. So I had Star Tours and Under the Sea, and pretty much for the same reasons you said, I went with Under the Sea. Because the way you described Star Wars, I feel about The Little Mermaid. So, Star Tours is definitely more of like a more thrilling ride if I want to do something like that, but I'm always just happy on a Journey Under the Sea.
Okay, and the last one in the Elite Eight that I had was the Grand Fiesta Tour and Living with the Land, and I'm going with Living with the Land. I think that for most of the reasons that I stated already. It's just like you did with the other one. It was just like, don't think, just pick, and that's what that's where I went.
So I had the Carpets and Nemo, and Nemo advanced. Nemo definitely drew a really good bracket here, because I don't know that I would, out of all of these, if it was in a different order, I don't know that it would have made the final four. But I don't know. It's fun. And the song is super catchy, and we're chasing the little fish around.
Yeah. The one thing that I like, the song is catchy, it gets stuck in your head. The one thing about it is just like there's no context to the song. Where's the song coming from? Just all of a sudden they just start singing. And it's like, why? There's no reference to this at all earlier in the ride. There's no reference to it in the movies that I can recall. So, yeah, it does get stuck in your head, but at the same time, it's just like, okay, why did they just start singing?
Yeah, it's fun. So that you'll sing along with it, and then you get off the ride and sing it some more.
It's just when I said before that it was just like they kind of like, because it was originally just the seas. Yeah. And then they threw the overlay of Nemo on it, and they're just kind of like, is this good? This good enough? It feels like it was just kind of piecemealed together to like, they're just like, okay, we need to put some IP on this, so they did. I still like it. I'll still go on it, but I'm not trying to disparage poor Nemo and his little fin, but yeah, that's just something that popped into my head.
So I don't know. I just quickly looked it up, and so I can't confirm any of it because I haven't read it and I don't have the time, but it looks like that song is in the musical at Animal Kingdom. So I don't
that would
know
explain, because we haven't seen that.
Which came first.
That's another thing that we'll be able to see when we possibly be able to see when we go.
Yeah, last time it still had not reopened.
Right. Yeah.
But yes, so I don't know which came first, but it does sound like there might be a connection between it.
Well, then that makes a little more sense.
All right. Final four.
Final four. I've got Spaceship Earth and the Teacups. Oof. Oh man, this is tough. And I think I'm going to go with the Teacups here. And I'm going to go with the Teacups because, and this is where the walk-on ability comes in. There are times where there is a wait, and it can be somewhat long.
Especially first thing in the morning.
For Spaceship Earth. Whereas the Teacups, you can
I
usually
don't think we've ever waited more than 20 minutes. If that.
I mean, usually it's
but yeah, we've waited 40, 45 minutes for Spaceship Earth before.
You wouldn't go on it if it was more than like a 15-minute wait, I don't think.
Teacups? No.
Yeah. So basically the Teacups are one of those things that, for the purposes of this, is just like, oh, hey, you want to hop on this? The Teacups are there. So I'm going with the Teacups.
So I had Spaceship Earth and PhilharMagic. And I'm a little, I advanced PhilharMagic. I enjoy that. Again, it's fun. And if you're mentioning that, I wasn't thinking about it when I pushed it through. I just said, I'd rather listen to the songs and watch the concert, in quotation marks, than listen to the history of Earth. So that was my reason for it, is, PhilharMagic was just a little more fun. But if you're talking about Walk On too, PhilharMagic's in a theater, so you can fit a lot of people. So It is something that, you're not waiting too long for. Oftentimes, the longest wait is just waiting for the show that's ahead of time to finish and then going in.
Tip for PhilharMagic and pretty much any of these things that are in a theater is, don't be in a rush to be the first one in, because they're going to make you move all the way down the row. So be like one of the people who's halfway in between, like the start and the end, and so that you do get that spot right in the middle. So.
All right, other side.
On the other side, it's Star Tours and Living with the Land. It's going to be Star Tours.
Duh.
The walk-on ability of Living with the Land does not trump any of the Star Wars related, draw, for.
Yeah.
Even though Star Tours can have a wait, it was one of the ones that was like higher on not as high as I thought in terms of like where it ranked. It was.
I think.
Was it 16? So
I think because there's more Star Wars now too.
Yeah.
That helps. But I know last time when we went on it, it wasn't a huge wait at all.
No, and I feel like
we had a wait when we went in February with your sister and her family.
Right.
That was probably 30-ish. Maybe even a little longer.
It was. I would say it was probably about 30. Like, we did have to go through the queue in the Endor Forest and everything like that. But it felt like it
was quick.
Was constantly
never
moving.
Stopped.
So
we kept trying to apply sunscreen in line.
And we had to keep moving. Yeah.
Yeah,
we'd have like a white arm, because we didn't have time to rub it in.
Okay, so this was Final Four on that side, right? Yes.
Yep.
So I had Under the Sea and Nemo. So apparently this side was my water bracket. And Under the Sea, hands down. you were like making fun of me for pushing Nemo through, but I mean, so now The Little Mermaid.
I wasn't making fun
You
of you.
were questioning it. It's okay. I haven't questioned any of your choices.
You know, you were also breaking the rules, so.
Anyway, so.
All right, so.
So who do you have?
For the final, I have Teacups and Star Tours.
And I have PhilharMagic and Under the Sea. So there's not even a chance that we'll have the same champion. And I feel like both of those kind of describe like
us.
our personalities. Like, yeah.
I'd say pretty accurately. Yeah. So you called it a couple of rounds ago. It's going to be Star Tours. I'm just a sucker for Star Wars, and even though there's so much other Star Wars stuff in Hollywood studios now, this is on top of everything else, the most accessible and the most, you have the most ready access to it.
Yeah.
So if you don't have time, or you don't have time or whatever to do the other things, you can get a taste of Star Wars.
Yeah. So this was, when I had filled out my bracket ahead of time, I didn't make a decision because I feel like those, both PhilharMagic and Under the Sea, are two very different type experiences. And I wasn't sure which one I was going to pick. But as I'm thinking about it now, and I'm going to include all this stuff because it helps dictate the winner. So, when you're going on Journey Under the Sea, you have to walk to the back of Fantasyland. It's important. You get to... No.
Wait, Journey Under the Sea, or... Because Journey Under the Sea, isn't that the show at Hollywood Studios?
Yeah.
That Voyage. Excuse me. Sorry. No, it's just Under the Sea. The ride is just Under the Sea.
So anyway,
the Magic Kingdom ride is just Under the Sea, I believe.
So anyway, you head way back there, and you see Prince Eric's castle, and you
She's breaking the rules again. She's also pulled out the My Disney Experience app, so I know I'm in trouble here.
So we were both... So, Under the Sea, Journey of the Little Mermaid.
Okay.
So, it's, a two-part thing. So I was calling it what? Journey Under the Sea?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and then the queue to get to the ride is really fun because there's like sea glass in the ground and like shells, and it's just a fun, like, if you do end up having to wait, it's a fun spot to look, and you go by like the waterfalls that are back there. So then you get, and we see Scuttle, right? You see Scuttle, and then like it gets cooler, and like the lighting makes it look like you've gone from land like under the sea. And so when we think of the whole experience of those two things, with PhilharMagic you're waiting in a big room until the theater opens. Yeah, there's some posters on the wall, but nothing like super exciting. Whereas the whole time from like entering that area by Eric's castle until you get into your shell, which is what you ride in for the ride. So, yeah, Under the Sea is the winner.
Okay, so she didn't end up breaking the rules. She had a very valid point about part of the ride, so...
And then you come off of it, and the very next thing right next to it is to meet Ariel, if you so desire.
You know, so now I'm looking at this, and when I was putting this together, I was kind of like, well, you know, the things that have the longest wait times are probably the things that are just going to push through to the, you know, like, they're going to blow away some of these other things. But I'm looking like at my final four, and it's mostly like the things that are kind of like the mid-range. Like so, like the teacups were 12. Spaceship Earth was 17, so that was a little longer. Star Tours was 16, and Living with the Land was 6. So one of those things where, you know, a lot of the ones with the longest time didn't make it all the way through the way that I thought it was.
Yeah.
Did you have the same experience with yours, or how did...
I mean...
Of course, you had Philhar Magic, which was
13, so...
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I guess
in that
was,
middle range. Under the Sea was 23.
Yeah, that one can get longer.
Yeah. But that's where having stuff in the queue to look at is helpful. And then I had Nemo, which was 11, so... Yeah.
So, Under the Sea and Small World were both on that cusp. They both averaged 20 minutes.
Yeah, but definitely...
But still approachable. Like, you know, anything like that. You're at Disney World, so a 20-minute wait is nothing.
Yeah. I mean, and again, one of the things, too, you know, about some of those rides, like Little Mermaid, it's a constantly moving ride, so... Typically, the only time you're standing for a long period of time is if they have to slow it down or stop it to accommodate wheelchairs or something like that. So it tends to be a steadier move. Like, I don't mind waiting, but what I really do mind is when you've been waiting for 20 minutes without moving.
Yeah.
Like, that's where I have a hard time.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right, so you now know what our favorites would be. Well, at least according to this. This doesn't necessarily reflect what our absolute favorites would be, but in this format, you've seen us whittle it down. We'd certainly be interested to hear what some of yours are. I had posed this question to social media, and the responses that I got were basically like, oh, good luck finding something. But like, we identified 24 rides that we have experienced, rides or attractions that we have experienced that have a 20-minute wait or under. And there are more that we haven't, that weren't included in this.
Well, and I think one thing to take away from it too is sometimes it is the time of day. Like you pointed out, this is the average. So that means that there are times where Spaceship Earth has a 45-minute wait, but there's also times where it's a walk-on and it's a 5-minute wait. So it's kind of like one of those things, like if you talk to people, if you do a little research on it in advance, you can try and play it so that you know the times of day where you have maybe a better shot of
and that's
getting on.
Yeah, that's certainly true for some of them, like you mentioned, the Spaceship Earth. But especially, you look at, like, the top 8 especially, all of those are things that are, like, basically, they're all 10 minutes or under, on average. So, you know, you unless something has really spiked, you're probably not going to have a real wait. And it's a theme park, so there are going to be waits. So these are just some of those things that maybe can, you know, that can fill gaps on top of everything.
Or that if you are doing Genie, maybe you don't try and do it for these rides.
Exactly.
Unless, you know, you can stack it later in the day. But don't rush to make your reservations for these. Save it for something else.
Right.
Because you can probably find a time where it's a little lighter.
All right. Well, that is just about going to wrap this episode. I will say that I'm sure at some point we will be doing another questions from the Magic Mickey ears. People seem to like that and have responded to that. Also, we still haven't had Megan on again. I think that's going to happen. You know, it's going to happen soon. Otherwise, you know,
I think it's got to be the next week or two, depending on what you've got lined up. Because every time she hears us record one too, she's in bed now, but when she'll wake up and she'll be like, did you do a podcast? Because she'll see stuff set up. And she's just like, when do I get to do a podcast? A couple weeks ago, she was making up a song about how she wants to do a podcast and how Disney is the best, and she's going to do a podcast about Disney. So
yeah, if we don't do one soon, she's going to steal the microphone in protest.
Yeah.
All right, but until then, thank you for listening, and we'll see you real soon.
Bye.
Enjoy the rest of your stay and come see us again sometime.
Well, that wraps another episode of the Maz's Musings podcast. I hope you had some fun and maybe learned a thing or two about some of these rides that maybe you've walked past in the past, and maybe now you'll walk on them. Anyway, once again, thanks very much for listening. If you want to reach out, I mentioned before the ways that you can. We are on social media, the Maz's Musings podcast Facebook page. We've got Maz's Musings Pod, which is the new Instagram account. You can visit us at mazasmusings.wordpress.com. That's our website. That's got some information. It's got past episodes. It's also got contact information so that you can reach out to me directly. And you can also just reach out with mazasmusings@gmail.com. And I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear what you think about some of these attractions. I'd love to hear what you think about future podcast episodes and things that we could do. I'd love to hear your feedback on what we've done so far. If you have a favorite episode that isn't this one and you think that there's something else that we've done that we did really well, shoot it to me. Let me know. All of this feedback helps a ton. What also helps a ton is telling your friends, telling your family, tell those coworkers that won't be really annoyed by you talking about another podcast. Or also, you can leave a review, you can leave a rating. All this stuff helps people connect with the podcast. And when we do that, hopefully everybody has a little more fun. And we reach more people, and this thing grows, and it's just going to be awesome. Reflecting back on this particular episode, Eileen was absolutely right when she pointed out that the wait times that we were discussing were averages. So don't come back to me and say, hey, I waited 40 minutes for Dumbo. You told me it was a walk-on. Because, hey, well, you know what? There are some times when it is 40 minutes. But the average is less than that. If you want to take a look at what those average wait times are, you can go to the Laughing Place website, which is where I found this. And they actually have a site dedicated to the average wait times for the rides and attractions at Walt Disney World. For everybody else's reference, I will also put the bracket up on social media. So if you want to be looking at the bracket, maybe do a bracket of your own, or use it as a guide for when you're researching these walk-on times, it'll be there for you. So as we wrap up, I do once again just want to thank everybody for listening. And this week, I hope you have a really great Memorial Day weekend and a great week.